The great hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with quiet conversation. Tall beings with scaly skin sat next to creatures that looked like floating lights. Insect-like aliens clicked their mandibles while discussing trade routes with four-armed diplomats. This was the Galactic Council, and it had kept peace across the galaxy for 3,000 years. Council leader Vextar stood at the center of the massive chamber. His reptilian form towered over most other species, and old battle scars marked his dark green scales. Despite his fierce appearance, Vextar had spent most of his life in peaceful negotiations. War was something that belonged to the ancient past. The mining dispute between the outer colonies has been resolved, announced Zilneth, a representative of the hive mind species. Her compound eyes reflected the chamber's soft blue light as she spoke. Both sides have agreed to share the asteroid belt according to the standard protocols. Vextar nodded his massive head. Another successful mediation. The Council continues to prove that civilized beings can solve any problem through discussion and compromise. Around the chamber, representatives from 47 different species murmured their agreement. Some looked like walking plants, others resembled crystalline structures, and a few seemed to be made of pure energy. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing. They believed in peace above all else. The luminary delegate, a being of shifting light named Astravel, floated forward. There is one small matter that requires attention. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual energy readings near the galactic rim. What kind of readings? Vextar asked. Unknown signatures, very powerful, but the pattern doesn't match any known technology in our databases. Commander Korvac, a younger Zephyrian with bright red scales, stepped forward. My patrol ships have investigated similar reports. We found nothing but empty space and strange radiation that our sensors couldn't identify. Zilneth's antennae twitched as she accessed the hive mind's vast memory banks. Our records show intermittent reports of such phenomena for the past 2 centuries. Always in the same general region, what we call the dead zone. The dead zone, Vextar repeated thoughtfully. That wasteland of empty systems beyond our borders. Nothing has ever come from there. It's probably just natural phenomena. Solar flares from dying stars or gravitational anomalies. There is another possibility, said an elderly keeper, one of the Council's historians. His voice was weak but clear. The ancient archives speak of a lost species that once lived in that region. They called themselves humans. Several Council members made sounds of amusement. The idea of unknown species was absurd. The galaxy had been thoroughly mapped and catalogued centuries ago. Humans, Vextar said with a slight smile. Yes, I remember those old stories. Bipedal creatures who walked upright like children's toys. Supposedly from a small yellow star they called Sol. Pure fiction, created by explorers who spent too much time alone in deep space. The stories described them as violent and unpredictable. The keeper continued. They supposedly fought wars among themselves constantly. Such behavior is impossible for an intelligent species to develop. Zilneth clicked her mandibles in agreement. Our evolutionary models prove that intelligence and aggression cannot coexist. Any species that reaches spacefaring capabilities must have evolved beyond primitive territorial instincts. Exactly, Vextar said. Intelligence requires cooperation. A species that fights itself could never develop the technology needed for interstellar travel. These humans are nothing more than ancient myths. Commander Korvac pulled up a holographic display showing the outer rim region. Red dots marked the locations of the strange energy readings. The signal seemed to be moving in a pattern, but it's unlike any natural phenomenon we know. Probably asteroid impacts or magnetic storms, suggested Astravel. The rim regions are unstable due to gravitational effects from nearby galaxies. Should we send a research expedition? Korvac asked. Vextar considered this. The Council had limited resources, and there were more important matters to attend to. 3 trade disputes needed resolution, 2 species were requesting membership, and the annual peace celebration required planning. No, he decided. We cannot waste ships and personnel chasing ghost signals in empty space. If there were anything significant in the dead zone, we would have found it centuries ago. The other Council members nodded in agreement. The galaxy was a known quantity. Every star system had been mapped, every habitable world catalogued. The Council's survey ships had been exploring for thousands of years without finding any new intelligent species. What about the power levels in these readings? Korvac pressed. Our sensors indicate energy outputs far beyond anything our most advanced civilizations can produce. Sensor errors, Zilneth said dismissively. Old equipment misreading natural phenomena. We should focus on upgrading our detection systems rather than chasing impossible signals. The discussion moved on to other matters. Plans for a new cultural exchange program between the artistic Melodians and the mathematical Calculons. Updates on the terraforming project in the Vega system. Routine reports from peacekeeping forces monitoring old territorial boundaries. As the session continued, none of the council members noticed the small changes in the data flowing through their networks. Deep space monitoring stations reported brief sensor contacts that appeared and disappeared too quickly to track. Automated systems logged unusual gravitational disturbances and then deleted them as statistical errors. In the far reaches of space, beyond the council's borders, something was indeed moving through the darkness. Ships unlike anything in the galactic databases traveled silently between the stars, their hulls scarred by battles fought in distant wars the council couldn't imagine. The session ended with Vextar's traditional closing words: peace through understanding, prosperity through cooperation. The council stands as proof that intelligent beings can live together in harmony. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, they felt satisfied with another successful day of governance. Their civilization had perfected the art of peaceful coexistence. They had solved every problem through discussion and compromise. War was an ancient memory, violence a primitive instinct that evolution had bred out of all advanced species. None of them suspected that their galaxy was about to change forever. In the depths of space, far from their comfortable chambers and peaceful negotiations, engines that burned with the fury of stars pushed vessels forward at speeds that would have terrified the council. These ships carried beings whose entire history was written in fire and blood, whose technology had been forged in the crucible of endless war. The humans were no longer a myth. They were coming. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, watching the stars shift and bend as his ship cut through hyperspace. The view screen showed the strange, twisted reality of faster-than-light travel, but Jake had seen it thousands of times before. His weathered face remained calm as he studied the navigation displays. "How much longer until we reach the target system?" he asked. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from her tactical station. 18 hours, sir. Long-range sensors are already picking up signs of advanced civilization. Multiple orbital structures around the fourth planet. Any response to our transmission signals? Nothing yet, Captain. Either they're not receiving us or they're choosing not to respond. Jake nodded. This was humanity's first deep space exploration beyond their home region. For months they had traveled through empty systems, mapping worlds and searching for other intelligent life. The discovery of this civilization was the breakthrough they had been hoping for. "What's our fleet status?" Jake asked. Commander Steve Parker, the chief engineer, checked his displays. All 12 ships are running at optimal efficiency. The Vengeance and the Liberty are maintaining flanking positions. The science vessels are ready to begin detailed scans once we drop out of hyperspace. The human fleet represented the finest technology their species had ever created. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, built for exploration but equipped for war. Humanity had learned long ago that the universe was not a friendly place. Dr. Lisa Chang, the communications specialist, worked at her station to analyze the alien signals they were receiving. "Captain, I'm picking up what seems to be standard traffic control frequencies. The mathematical patterns suggest a highly organized society. Any indication of military presence? Difficult to tell. The signals are encrypted, but the volume suggests heavy commercial traffic. This might be a major trade hub." Jake felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. First contact with an alien species was humanity's greatest dream, but it was also potentially their greatest danger. History had taught humans to be cautious when meeting strangers. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council had dismissed the strange energy readings from the Outer Rim. Now those readings were about to become very real. The UNS Defiance and its escort ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Immediately, their sensors began cataloging everything around them. Orbital stations the size of small moons, massive cargo ships moving between planets, energy signatures indicating a civilization far older and more established than humanity. "Contact," Amy Foster announced. "Single vessel approaching our position. Configuration unknown." On the main screen, a sleek ship appeared. It was beautiful in an alien way, with smooth curves and decorative patterns that suggested a culture that valued art as much as function. To human eyes, it looked more like a luxury yacht than a military. Vessel Captain Korvac commanded the Zephyrian, patrol ship Crimson Talon. His duty was routine: investigate unknown contacts and guide them to the nearest processing station. In 300 years of service, he had never encountered anything more exciting than lost cargo haulers. Unknown vessels, he transmitted using standard galactic common language. You have entered controlled space. Please identify yourselves and state your purpose. The response came in a language Korvac had never heard before. His computer systems tried to translate but found no matches in the galactic database. The energy readings from the alien ships were also confusing. Their power output was enormous, far beyond what should be necessary for vessels of their size. They don't understand our language, reported his communications officer, but they are attempting to respond. The signals show complex mathematical progressions. They're trying to establish communication protocols. Dr. Lisa Chang worked frantically to establish contact with the alien ship. I think they're using mathematical constants to build a common language base. Pi, the golden ratio, basic physics principles, standard first contact procedure. Can you establish communication? Give me a few minutes, Captain. Their computer systems are incredibly advanced, much more sophisticated than ours in some ways. Jake watched the alien ship maintain a respectful distance. So far, everything seemed peaceful. Amy, what's your tactical assessment? Single vessel, lightly armed from what I can tell. No aggressive movements. But Captain, there's something else. I'm reading massive energy signatures from deeper in the system. Whatever civilization built this place, they have technology that's... She paused, checking her readings again. Sir, some of these power sources are beyond our ability to classify. After 20 minutes of mathematical exchanges, basic communication was established. Captain Korvac found himself speaking to beings that matched the ancient descriptions of the mythical humans. Bipedal, shorter than most galactic species with strange hair growing from their heads, but their technology was definitely real. I am Captain Korvac of the Galactic Council patrol ship Crimson Talon, he transmitted. You have entered Council space. By galactic law, all new species must be processed and registered before being granted travel permits. Jake listened to the translation that Dr. Chang had managed to establish. Tell him we're explorers from the Sol system. We come in peace and would welcome the opportunity to meet with their government. Sol system? Korvac repeated, accessing his ship's database. The name appeared in the mythology section, not the star charts. That is impossible. Sol is a legend. Humans are mythical beings. I assure you we're very real, Jake replied through the translation system. Korvac was trained in first contact procedures, but nothing had prepared him for this. According to every database in the galaxy, these beings shouldn't exist, yet here they were, in ships that his sensors couldn't fully understand. You must accompany me to the nearest council station for proper registration and evaluation, Korvac decided. It was standard procedure, though he had never had to use it with a completely unknown species. The translation reached Jake's bridge with an undertone that his military experience recognized immediately. It was politely worded, but it was essentially an order. The alien ship was telling them where to go and what to do. Amy, what's the tactical situation if things go wrong? Foster checked her displays. Captain, that ship wouldn't last 30 seconds against our point defense systems, let alone our main weapons. But sir, I'm reading much larger vessels moving in our direction. Whatever this civilization has for a military, it's mobilizing. Jake made a decision that would change galactic history. Steve, bring all systems to ready status, but don't power weapons yet. Lisa, tell them we appreciate the invitation, but we need to consult with our own government before agreeing to any procedures. The response clearly confused the alien captain. In 3,000 years of galactic civilization, no one had ever questioned council authority. Every species recognized the council's right to regulate interstellar travel. I don't understand, Korvac transmitted. The council speaks for all civilized species in the galaxy. There is no higher authority. Where we come from, we speak for ourselves, Jake replied. The misunderstanding escalated quickly. More council ships appeared, surrounding the human fleet according to standard containment procedures. The humans, interpreting this as a potentially hostile action, raised their shields and powered up their defensive systems. Captain Korvac watched his sensors overload as the human ships activated systems that produced energy, outputs his instruments couldn't measure. What had seemed like a routine first contact was turning into something far more significant. "Alert Council Command," he ordered. "Request immediate backup and notify the emergency session protocols. I think we may have found something that changes everything." In the depths of space, 12 human ships faced off against the advanced scouts of a galactic civilization. Neither side understood what they were looking at, but both were about to discover that the galaxy was much larger and more dangerous than either had imagined. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything seen in over 1,000 years. Representatives had been called from across the galaxy, and the great chamber buzzed with nervous energy. Vextar looked down at his fellow council members, seeing fear in their eyes for the first time in his long career. "The reports cannot be accurate," declared Ambassador Telnox of the Crystalline Collective. "Ships with energy outputs exceeding our most powerful stations? It's impossible." "I've reviewed the sensor data myself," Zilneth replied, her compound eyes reflecting the chamber's lights. "The readings are consistent across multiple ships and systems. These beings possess technology that surpasses our understanding." Vextar raised his massive hand for silence. "Captain Korvac will present his report directly." The young Zephyrian appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. His red scales seemed to have lost some of their brightness, and his voice carried a tension that surprised the council members. "Honored representatives, I encountered 12 vessels of unknown design at coordinate 774 Mark 12. The beings aboard these ships claim to be from the Sol system. They call themselves humans." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The elderly keeper who had mentioned humans before leaned forward in his seat. "That's impossible," said Astravel, her light form flickering with agitation. "Humans are mythology. Ancient stories told by explorers who spent too long in deep space." "I thought the same thing," Korvac continued. "But these beings match the descriptions in our oldest archives. Bipedal, relatively short, with hair covering their heads. More importantly, their technology is far beyond anything in our databases." "How far beyond?" Vextar asked quietly. "Sir, their smallest ship produces more power than our largest battlecruiser. When they activated their defensive systems, our sensors couldn't even measure the energy output accurately. Our instruments simply displayed error messages." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council's peace had been maintained partly through the balance of power among member species. No one civilization was strong enough to dominate the others. But if these humans possessed such advanced technology, what do they want? Asked the representative from the aquatic worlds. "That's the strange part," Korvac replied. "They claim to be explorers. They say they've been searching for other intelligent life. But sir, there's something else, something that changes everything." Vextar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. "Continue." "They carry evidence of an ongoing war. A conflict against something they call the Devourers. According to their data, this enemy has been consuming entire star systems for 50 years. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. War on such a scale was unthinkable to beings who had known only peace for millennia. "Where is this war taking place?" Zilneth demanded, accessing the hive mind's strategic databases. "Beyond our borders, in the region we call the Dead Zone. But according to human calculations, this enemy will reach our space within months." The holographic display changed to show tactical maps that made the council members gasp. System after system marked in red, indicating complete destruction. The scope of the devastation was beyond anything in their experience. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the council chamber 3 days later, flanked by General Marcus Thompson and Dr. Alex Rivera. She wore the dark blue uniform of the United Earth Navy, and her calm confidence was unsettling to beings who had never seen a career military officer. The humans had been granted permission to address the council after heated debates and emergency consultations. Now as Kate looked around the great chamber, she saw faces filled with fear and disbelief. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "My people greet you with hopes for friendship and mutual cooperation. We have traveled far to find others who share the gift of intelligence and civilization." Vextar studied the human admiral carefully. Unlike the peaceful species of the council, this being radiated an aura of controlled violence. Her posture, her movements, even the way she spoke, suggested someone who had seen combat and survived. "Admiral Sullivan," Vextar said formally, "our records indicate that your species should not exist. Yet here you are with technology that exceeds our most advanced civilizations. How is this possible? Kate's expression grew serious. Council leader, your people have been fortunate. You've enjoyed peace and prosperity for thousands of years. My species has not been so lucky. The main display activated, showing images that made several council members look away in horror. Destroyed worlds, burning cities, massive mechanical constructs devouring everything in their path. For 50 years, humanity has been at war with an enemy we call the Devourers. They are not a natural species, but rather a mechanical collective intelligence that consumes all organic life to fuel its expansion. General Thompson stepped forward. This war has pushed our technology to its absolute limits. Every advance in our science has been driven by the need to survive against an enemy that shows no mercy and accepts no surrender. Dr. Rivera activated another display showing the tactical situation. The Devourer fleet is massive, thousands of ships, each one capable of sterilizing a planet. They've consumed entire sectors of space, turning them into lifeless industrial zones. Why have we never detected this threat? Asked Zilnith, her voice tight with concern. Because they've been fighting us, Kate replied simply. Humanity has served as a barrier between the Devourers and the rest of the galaxy. Every battle we've fought, every ship we've lost has bought time for civilizations like yours to continue existing in peace. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. All their peaceful prosperity had been possible only because another species was bleeding and dying to protect them. How long before they reach our space? Vexter asked, though he dreaded the answer. Our latest intelligence suggests 6 months, possibly less. General Thompson replied. Once they finish processing the resources from our outer colonies, they'll move toward the galactic core. Your space will be among the first areas they encounter. What do you want from us? Asked Ambassador Telnox. Kate's expression softened slightly. We want what we've always wanted. Allies. Friends. The chance to stand together against a threat that could destroy all intelligent life in this galaxy. Humanity cannot win this war alone. Our military forces are designed for peacekeeping, Vextar admitted reluctantly. We have no experience with total war. We do, Kate said quietly. We've learned things about warfare that we never wanted to know. But we've also learned that even the most terrible enemy can be defeated if good people are willing to stand together and fight. The chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed this information. Their comfortable world of peaceful negotiations and diplomatic solutions was about to end. An enemy was coming that could not be reasoned with, could not be negotiated with, could only be fought. What would you need from us? Vextar finally asked. Everything, General Thompson replied honestly. Ships, weapons, personnel, resources. This won't be like your border disputes or trade negotiations. This will be a fight for the survival of every intelligent species in the galaxy. Kate looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from dozens of different worlds. I know this is difficult to accept. Your civilizations have built something beautiful here. Peace, cooperation, mutual respect. We're asking you to risk all of that in a war you didn't choose. But if we don't fight, Dr. Rivera added quietly, none of it will matter. The Devourers don't care about your art, your culture, your history. They only care about converting organic matter into fuel for their expansion. Vextar looked at his fellow council members, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. Everything they had built, everything they valued, was about to be tested in ways they had never imagined. The council will need time to consider this information, he said formally. Kate nodded. Of course. But remember, the enemy won't wait for your deliberations to conclude. Every day you spend deciding is a day they get closer. As the humans left the chamber, the greatest civilization in galactic history faced a choice that would determine whether it survived or joined the countless others that had already been consumed by the darkness between the stars. The Galactic Council had split into factions, and the arguments echoed through the halls of Nexus Prime day and night. Some species wanted to trust the humans completely, while others viewed them as potential conquerors using fear to manipulate the galaxy. Vextar stood in his private chamber, looking out at the stars through the massive transparent dome. In the distance, human ships maintained position at the edge of the system, their dark hulls a constant reminder that everything had changed. The Zephyrian Military Council has reached a decision, announced Commander Thervok as he entered the chamber. Unlike the younger Korvac, Thervok was a veteran officer with scars across his blue-green scales. We will cooperate with the humans, but under our own terms. which means we'll share intelligence and coordinate strategies, but Zephyrian forces will remain under Zephyrian command. We won't become subordinates to these newcomers regardless of their technological advantages. Vextar nodded. It was a reasonable compromise, though he wondered if reasonable compromises would be enough against the enemy the humans described. Captain Ryan Brooks stood in the training facility aboard the Council's military station, watching Zephyrian pilots attempt to use human combat tactics. The results were not encouraging. Pull up," shouted Lieutenant Dan Miller, the human flight instructor. "You're flying straight into the enemy formation." The Zephyrian pilot's voice came through the comm system, calm and confused. But the tactical manual says to maintain formation integrity and avoid unnecessary aggressive maneuvers. The tactical manual was written for peacekeeping operations, Dan replied, trying to keep the frustration out of his voice. In real combat, formation integrity means nothing if you're dead. Captain Brooks watched the simulation results with growing concern. The Zephyrians were excellent pilots, precise, disciplined, and intelligent, but they had been trained for patrol duties and ceremonial flights. The concept of aggressive combat tactics was foreign to their thinking. "How many times have they crashed today?" Brooks asked his aide. 17 simulated crashes, sir. They keep trying to use diplomatic protocols during combat situations. One pilot actually tried to negotiate with the enemy AI during a dogfight. Brooks shook his head. The Council races were brave and intelligent, but 50 generations of peace had left them unprepared for war. Teaching them to fight would be like trying to teach children to be soldiers. In the engineering sections, Commander Steve Parker worked with hive mind technicians to upgrade their ship's defensive systems. The aliens' technology was sophisticated, but designed for efficiency and comfort rather than survival. "The hull plating is too thin," Steve explained to the chief technician, a hive mind individual named Unity 7. "One direct hit from a devourer weapon will punch right through it. But thicker armor will reduce fuel efficiency and limit our sensor range," Unity 7 replied, her antennae twitching with concern. "Our ships are designed for optimal performance across multiple parameters. Your ships are designed for peace," Steve said bluntly. "In war, the only parameter that matters is not getting killed." The cultural differences created constant friction. Human military doctrine was based on overwhelming force, aggressive tactics, and accepting heavy casualties to achieve victory. Council military philosophy emphasized minimal force, defensive positioning, and avoiding casualties at all costs. Dr. Lisa Chang had better success working with the Luminari on communication systems. The energy-based beings had natural abilities that complemented human technology in unexpected ways. Your quantum entanglement networks could revolutionize battlefield coordination. Lisa explained to her Luminari counterpart, Bright Echo, "We could maintain instant communication across the entire fleet, regardless of distance or interference. But such networks require enormous energy expenditure," Bright Echo replied, her light form pulsing with concern. "The power requirements would limit other ship systems. In combat, communication is more important than comfort systems," Lisa said. "A coordinated fleet with basic life support can defeat a confused fleet with luxury accommodations." Bright Echo's form flickered as she processed this concept. "You truly believe that survival takes priority over quality of life? When the alternative is extinction, yes." The first joint training exercise was a disaster that highlighted every difference between human and Council military thinking. The scenario was simple: defend a colony world against a simulated devourer attack. Captain Jake Martinez commanded the human contingent from the UNS Defiance, while Commander Thervok led the Council forces. The plan was straightforward: use the Council's superior numbers and the humans' advanced weapons to create a defensive perimeter around the planet. Within minutes, everything went wrong. The Zephyrian pilots flew in perfect formation, maintaining textbook spacing and following predetermined routes. When the enemy simulators appeared, they continued following their flight plans instead of adapting to the changing situation. The Luminari ships attempted to negotiate with the computer-controlled enemy forces, broadcasting surrender offers and ceasefire proposals that the Devourer programs ignored completely. The hive mind vessels performed flawlessly according to their programming, but their programming was designed for cargo escort missions and border patrol. When faced with aggressive enemy tactics, They continued following their original orders even as the simulation showed them being systematically destroyed. Break formation, Jake shouted over the communication channels. All ships engage at will. Negative, Thervok replied calmly. We must maintain unit cohesion and follow established protocols. The protocols don't work against this enemy. The protocols have maintained peace for 3,000 years. Jake watched the tactical display as council ships were eliminated one after another. They were dying because they couldn't adapt to a situation their training had never prepared them for. Amy, take us in. Full weapons. The UNS Defiance broke from the defensive line and charged straight at the enemy formation. Human tactics emphasize speed, aggression, and overwhelming firepower. Within minutes, the simulated devourers were retreating, but 2/3 of the council ships had been destroyed. The post-exercise debriefing was tense. Your tactics are reckless and wasteful, Thervok declared. You sacrificed unit cohesion for marginal tactical gains. We won, Jake replied simply. Your tactics got most of your people killed. In a simulation. Real battle requires discipline and adherence to proven methods. Proven against what enemy? General Thompson interjected. You've never fought a real war. You've never faced an enemy that wants to exterminate you completely. The room fell silent. It was true, and everyone knew it. The council races had built their military doctrines around conflicts between civilized species, disputes that could be resolved through limited force and negotiation. They had no concept of total war against an implacable enemy. Dr. Alex Rivera stood and activated a display showing intelligence reports from human reconnaissance missions. The Devourer advance scouts have been detected at the Galactic Rim. They're moving faster than our projections indicated. The images showed mechanical ships unlike anything the Council had ever seen. No aesthetics, no wasted space, no consideration for crew comfort. Pure function designed for one purpose: the complete destruction of organic life. How long do we have? Asked Zilneth. 3 months, maybe 4. Bextar looked around the room at the faces of beings from dozens of different worlds. Some showed determination, others fear. And many simply looked lost. They were being asked to abandon everything they believed about civilization and warfare. What do you propose? He asked the humans. Admiral Kate Sullivan stepped forward. Integrated training? Human officers embedded in your command structure, and council personnel learning our tactics. We don't have time to completely retrain your forces, but we can teach them how to survive. And if we refuse? Kate's expression was grave. Then you'll die bravely following 3,000 years of tradition, and the Devourers will consume your worlds anyway. The choice was brutal, but simple. Adapt or face extinction. Commander Thervok looked at his fellow officers, seeing the same struggle in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Everything they had believed about honor, duty, and proper conduct was being challenged by beings who treated war as a science rather than an art. We'll try your methods, he said finally. But if we're going to learn to fight like humans, you need to understand what you're asking us to give up. Jake nodded slowly. We understand. We had to make the same choice 50 years ago, when the Devourers first attacked our worlds. We gave up our peaceful ideals to become warriors. Did you ever regret it? Jake looked out the viewport at the stars, thinking of all the friends he had lost, all the worlds that had been abandoned, all the choices that had led humanity down the path of endless war. Every day, he said quietly, but we're still alive to have regrets. That's more than the Devourers offer their victims. The Kepler Nebula stretched across space like a massive cloud of glowing gas and electrical storms. Admiral Kate Sullivan had chosen this region for the final battle because the electromagnetic interference would disrupt the Devourers' coordination systems. It was humanity's last desperate gambit against an enemy that had consumed half the galaxy. Captain Jake Martinez stood on the bridge of the UNS Defiance, now serving as the flagship for the combined fleet. Around him, officers from a dozen different species worked at control stations, their differences set aside in the face of extinction. Fleet status report, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Amy Foster, now promoted to commander, checked her displays. 12 human ships operational, 43 council vessels in defensive positions. Zephyrian carrier groups are maintaining formation, while luminary support ships are ready to provide communication links. What about the hive mind drone swarms? Unity 7 reports 2,000 combat drones ready for deployment. Their programming has been modified with human tactical algorithms. Jake nodded. It had taken months of intensive training, but the Council forces had finally learned to adapt human combat methods to their own capabilities. They would never be as aggressive as human warriors, but they had found ways to contribute that played to their strengths. Dr. Lisa Chang worked at her communication station, coordinating with Bright Echo to maintain quantum-linked networks across the fleet. Admiral Sullivan sends word from the command ship. Devourer advance elements have entered the nebula. Contact in 30 minutes. The enemy had finally arrived. Long-range sensors showed a fleet of mechanical ships that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each Devourer vessel was a perfectly efficient killing machine, designed by artificial intelligence that viewed organic life as nothing more than raw materials to be processed. Commander Thervok led the Zephyrian fighter squadrons from his command ship, the Crimson Storm. Beside him flew Lieutenant Dan Miller in his human interceptor, part of the mixed formation that had become the new standard for Council forces. Remember, Dan transmitted to the Zephyrian pilots, don't try to fight them one-on-one. Use your superior numbers and coordinate your attacks. Hit them fast, then break away before they can return fire. Understood, replied Wing Commander Skarnath. But what if they pursue individual targets? Then you lead them into the overlapping fields of fire from our capital ships, Dan explained. Let the big guns finish what you start. It was a radical change from traditional Zephyrian tactics, which emphasized individual skill and honor in combat. But the Devourers cared nothing for honor, and individual skill meant nothing against enemies that could calculate and counter every move. General Marcus Thompson coordinated the overall battle plan from the UNS Vengeance. Beside him, Dr. Alex Rivera monitored the biological weapons they had prepared, viruses designed to attack the Devourers' adaptive systems. The enemy is deploying in standard consumption formation, Alex reported. They're spreading out to maximize system coverage. Good, Marcus replied. That's what we want. Unity 7, deploy your drones in harassment pattern Delta. Force them to maintain tight formations. The Hive Mind coordinator acknowledged the order, and thousands of small combat drones swarmed out from the Council ships. They couldn't destroy the massive Devourer vessels, but they could confuse their targeting systems and force them to waste ammunition on small targets. The battle began with long-range missile exchanges that lit up the nebula with explosions. Human weapons, designed through 50 years of warfare, struck deep into Devourer hulls, but the enemy ships adapted quickly, their armor reconfiguring to resist the attacks. They're learning our weapon signatures, reported the tactical officer aboard the UNS Liberty. Effectiveness is dropping by 12% per minute. Captain Ryan Brooks, commanding the Liberty, made a split-second decision. All ships switched to random frequency modulation. Don't let them predict our attack patterns. The Luminari ships proved invaluable in this phase of the battle. Bright Echo and her colleagues used their quantum abilities to coordinate instantaneous communications across the entire fleet, allowing rapid tactical changes that kept the Devourers from adapting to human strategies. But the enemy's size advantage was overwhelming. For every Devourer ship destroyed, 2 more appeared from hyperspace. Their reinforcements seemed endless, while the combined fleet was already taking heavy casualties. Council ship Harmony's light is gone, Amy Foster reported grimly. Zephyrian cruiser Storm's Edge is venting atmosphere. The Hive Mind vessel collective strength has lost main power. Jake watched the tactical display as friendly icons disappeared one by one. They were losing the battle of attrition, just as humanity had been losing for 50 years. Marcus, he called over the command channel. It's time. General Thompson nodded grimly. The final gambit was desperate and would almost certainly be suicide, but it was their only chance to break the enemy's coordination. All ships, this is General Thompson. Execute Operation Last Light. The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. A small group of volunteers would penetrate the heart of the Devourer formation and plant Dr. Rivera's virus directly into their command ship systems. The virus would turn the enemy's adaptive abilities against them, causing a cascade failure that would cripple their entire fleet. Marcus led the suicide mission personally, commanding a mixed force of human and Council volunteers. His ship, the UNS Redemption, was joined by Commander Thervok's Crimson Storm and Unity 7's drone carrier Collective Will. Remember, Alex Rivera transmitted from his position in the ship's science lab, the virus has to be uploaded directly to their central processing core. Remote transmission won't work. Their defenses are too strong. Understood, Marcus replied. Nervok, your fighters will clear us a path. Unity 7. Your drones will provide cover during the upload. It has been an honor serving with humans, Nervok transmitted. Perhaps in death our species will finally understand what courage truly means. The small force pushed deep into the enemy formation, taking massive damage as devourer weapons tore through their shields and armor. Council ships that had been designed for peaceful exploration died protecting human vessels that had known only war. Unity 7's drones swarmed around the enemy command ship, sacrificing themselves to keep its weapons busy while Marcus's ship approached the hull. The HiveMind coordinator transmitted her final message. For the collective memory of all organic life, Dr. Rivera worked frantically to upload the virus as enemy fire hammered their ship. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. The upload completed just as a devourer weapon punched through the Redemption's hull. Marcus felt the ship dying around him, but his last sight was the enemy command ship's lights flickering as the virus began its work. Throughout the devourer fleet, ships began turning on each other as their adaptive systems received conflicting instructions. The virus spread through their network, convincing their artificial intelligence that organic life was actually a beneficial symbiotic organism that should be protected rather than consumed. It's working, Amy Foster shouted from the Defiance. The enemy fleet is breaking apart. But victory came at a terrible cost. Of the 12 human ships that had entered the battle, only 4 remained operational. The Council forces had suffered even worse casualties, with entire species losing half their military strength in a single engagement. Jake looked around his damaged bridge, seeing faces that reflected his own exhaustion and grief. They had won, but the price had been almost everything they cared about. 3 months later, Jake stood in the rebuilt council chambers on Nexus Prime. The Great Hall looked much the same as before, but everything had changed. Where once there had been only peaceful diplomats, now military officers sat beside scientists and philosophers. Vextar, his scales now showing new scars from the battle, addressed the assembled representatives. The galaxy has learned a hard truth. Peace is not the natural state of the universe. It must be defended by those willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Admiral Kate Sullivan, wearing the new insignia of the Galactic Defense Force, stepped forward. The threat is ended, but we cannot forget the lessons we've learned.
Humanity has agreed to share our military knowledge with all council species, and in return,
You've taught us that strength without wisdom is just another form of destruction. A new memorial wall displayed the names of all those who had died in the war, humans and aliens side by side, their differences erased by shared sacrifice. Children from different worlds came to visit the memorial, learning about the time when myths became reality and peace was won through war. Dr. Lisa Chang, now director of the Integrated Communications Project, worked with luminary scientists to develop new technologies that combined human innovation with alien wisdom. The goal was to ensure that no threat could ever again catch the galaxy unprepared. In the outer systems, joint patrol fleets maintained watch on the galactic borders. Human ships with their battle-scarred hulls flew alongside pristine council vessels, their crews working together to protect a civilization that had learned to value both peace and the strength to defend it. Jake Martinez, now Admiral of the Outer Rim Defense Force, often looked up at the stars and remembered when humans were just a myth.